Hello, everyone, and welcome to the live episode of the Butterfly Evolution Radio Show. Rodney will be on with us tonight. He's running just a little bit late. Thankfully, I was able to make it. I was doubting it, but I made it. So, thank you guys. It's been a few weeks since we've been on. So, thank you for your patience. Thank you for joining us, choosing Butterfly Evolution Radio on this, I'll say, rainy Tuesday night for where I am. So not sure how the weather will hold up for us, but hopefully we will make it through. So we are coming back to you tonight to finish our, I'll say, a very short series of victim syndrome. We'll probably revisit this conversation, this particular topic, but in another form, in the form of, and I always have issues saying this word, narcissism, because it's so close, like this victim mentality, not the same. However, I think it is it is in the same family. It is closely connected, rightfully so, because I think what we fail to realize anytime that someone is going through some things and we have titled it, that much of it comes from, and you guys hear this a lot, not just on this show, but on Trent's show as well, trauma. And I think that is a word and a condition that we fail to give enough time, because if we address the trauma, or I'll say the traumatic experiences that we have, because we're going to revisit some of the things that we said on 2 weeks ago about this topic. And one of those things was, like, we all have those traumatic experiences, but the trauma, and for me, this is just how I see it. The trauma is when we continue to relive those experiences. And when I told you guys I was rushing. I'm all out of my clothes here. When we continue to relive, to revisit, and to think that we are the aftermath of those experiences, and the marks that it has left on us. So we're going to revisit this, but again, as it relates to being to narcissism. So I'm sure you guys have heard that word. If you've not, you will want to hear it. And I think it's a word also that we kind of just throw around loosely. And I don't hear the victim syndrome that often, but I think it is because maybe I'm going to be careful, because, well, let me just not go there right now. Let me just wait. I'm going to get us through the introduction part, and hopefully Rodney will be on here shortly. But thank you guys again. I want to remind you of our trash can baby. We ask that you guys, I want you to really think about doing this. I was listening to the previous show on the victim syndrome that we did, Rodney and I did. And as I was listening to it, so many things came from it that I'm going to bring forth tonight. But this trash can baby, Butterfly Evolution Radio Show, is simply about transformation, about change, about owning who you are, owning your stuff, taking responsibility for not just who you are, where you are in life. And I'm going to say this, how you arrived there. This was one of the most difficult things for me to do when I started to even think about transforming my life. And I wish I could remember the person that told me this, or when I first learned that you have to take responsibility for things that you had no control over. You had to take responsibility for those traumatic experiences that had kept me, I'll speak for myself, traumatized. So much of our trauma and those traumatic experiences, whether we want to own up to it or not, come from a very early age. So which is why Rodney and we kind of went off the road a little bit, but not so much, because in order to talk about victim syndrome or trauma, you have to go back. You have to go back and talk about, deal with, more importantly, get an understanding of those traumatic experiences. And the only way you can really do this is by saying, no matter how much control I had in the experience, I do have control now of how I experience that experience and bring it into my current life, my now. So that's what Butterfly Evolution is about. transformation, owning your stuff, owning you, taking responsibility for where you are, but more importantly, where you want to go. And how do you get there? So one of the things that we incorporated years and years and years ago was asking you, because I did it for a very long time and I still continue to do it. We ask that you move your trash can, one that you visit frequently. So for me, it's the kitchen. For some reason, I'm always in the kitchen, touching, wiping, cooking, whatever. And so I go there quite a lot, and I visit my trash can there quite a bit. So we ask that you move your trash can, and in doing so, monitor how many times you go back to that old location, to the place that you moved it from. How many times or how often do you go back there? If you're married, if you have a family, or if you have roommates, ask them to join you. This is something, especially during this time of COVID and where we are, and how we have to be, because a lot of us are still choosing to kind of stay low, but ask the people in your life that live with you to join you in this, and let them know why you're doing it. That you are just wanting to, you heard about it on Butterfly Revolution radio show, and you're wanting to do it just to see how you move forward with it, how you respond to it. If you're like normal people, us, even now when I move it, I still find myself sometimes going back to where I moved it from. So you move your trash can, and then you monitor how often you return back to the place that you moved it from. So we want you to think about that a minute. You actually physically move your trash can. Yet, what you may find, if you're like us, you will find yourself going back to the place that you moved the trash can from. So I know when I did it, I thought, this is crazy. Why do I keep, in some cases, I would pass my trash can where I moved it to go to that old location. And when you do this is where the part comes in it, because it'll be kind of funny and crazy. You'll think, what's wrong initially, but over some time and after a few times, what you start to do is you start to think about, okay, why am I going back to that place? Because you guys, the mind, we have to truly become unlearned. We have to work to become unlearned, or to unlearn the things that we've experienced, the things that we've been taught. Nothing about parents, grandparents, or aunts, uncles, our elders, because they did the best that they could do with the information that they had. But we're in a time where there are books we can now read by choice, whatever it is we want to read. So there is no need. There's this saying that my people perish for a lack of knowledge. There is no reason at all to not be filled with knowledge about anything that you want to be, or want to explore or know more about. So for me, change has become an addiction for me. Like, I am dissecting everything, words, quotes. I'm feeding my spirit. I'm listening to things that even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, if you'd have told me those were the things that would be interesting to me, I would have thought you're crazy. So when you move that trash can, it is about the bigger picture, the broader perspective of why. Why do I go back? Knowing that I've moved it. And sometimes we want to move and change and transform so badly sometimes, until that seems so difficult to do, because it's so much unlearning, it's so much turning back so that you can just feel, I guess, normal. Because like it or not, we get addicted to so many things that we have no idea about. The way we think, our perspective of life, and those things come from, again, those traumatic experiences. So move that trash can. So tonight's topic, victim syndrome. Last week, we talked again about parenting, how those things that we go through at a young age follow us. I'm going to make sure this is not writing you guys. So, okay, that's my mama. Sorry about that. But we talked about the experiences that we go through in childhood and how they come along with us in life. Victim syndrome is one of those things. It is one of many, but it is one of those things. And I this topic came from talking with someone that is very dear to me, and I had to say it as politely as possible because I didn't want to offend this person. But you guys, it's time. I've not always been able to say things that I think would hurt people. But at the same time, those things that might hurt them for a minute really would have helped them grow had they been receiving of it. That being said, I say more now, but I'm still very intentional about setting the tone, setting the mode, making sure that the person on the other end of the receiving end knows that I'm coming from a very loving place. So I was having several mini conversations, and I had to say, I feel like you're becoming a victim. And it probably wasn't becoming. There was probably some things in life that had brought us to this point. Um, and so that person was very receiving of it, and I left that conversation and I started typing. I don't even know how I ended up with the victim syndrome, but it led me to this. And as many conversations and subjects and topics, um, I make them very personal, and I try to find, am I in this? Am I where can I learn and grow from this as well? And as I mentioned last week, I had gotten to a point where I would have anxiety about just going out, just being people, like like really started not to. And I've always been a homebody. I've always wanted to be home more than out, but it was different this time. And I don't know if it's because of COVID or what, but there was something just different about people. I saw the world as a very negative, and people as very negative. I saw it that way. So what I shared last week was I felt like after this discussion, after reading some of this, um, that I was projecting that thing out there. Like I was almost not almost I was expecting the experience that I was getting. And so I said last week that our mind shapes the world that we live in, that perception, our mind. But long before our mind gives us that vision or that perspective of life, our mind was, what's the word for it? Our mind was shaped without us knowing it. And again, I'm going back to that. And that's not how I put it. And I'll get the exact words, but I'm going back to that childhood. So we learn to be victims by and through those experiences that we experienced long before we knew what experience was and what the effects of those experiences could be in our life. So I want to do two things. I want to just kind of touch on the words that we're going to be talking about tonight. Victim. Another word for victim is a sufferer. Rodney's coming with us. Thank you, Rodney. How are you? And then syndrome, disease, disorder, pattern, condition. And so for me, the pattern stuck out on the from the word syndrome. And these are words that mean the same as. And victim was very clear, sufferer. So though we have patterns in life that we have learned to cope to use as coping mechanisms. That's a great way to say it. And they show up in many ways. The one word that I continue to think about, let me get right. Hey, Rodney, how are you?
Hey, Tammy, I'm good. How are you?
Good, good, good. Glad you made it. Glad you
Sorry,
made it.
sorry about that.
No, you're fine. I thought I was going to be a little bit late as well, but thankfully I made it on time. So I'll catch you up here. So what I was doing is I've already did the trash can baby, but I was going over the words victim and the syndrome, and I was speaking about syndrome. The word that I liked most was patterns because there are patterns to our dysfunction, and I know we hate to hear that word and to think about that word as it relates to us, but I've been doing the radio show for me since 2011, June 2011, you guys. And there's still so much dysfunction and unlearning that I am still doing. But the areas are getting so broad, um, that, and by I mean broad, like this topic, victim syndrome. Like I never would have thought to put some of the things that I've gone through and how they've made me show up in relationships, at work, just going out to the store. Um, Even in this, I learned some things about myself. So as I mentioned last week, I was going out to the store. So I decided last week after the show that I'm gonna change this. I'm going to try to have a better perspective. And that is one thing that we don't realize that we have control over. We say, well, I can't do that. No matter what you're doing, you can, because you've made a choice to do something, whether to think negatively about it or positively. And it sounds crazy, but no matter what it is, you've made a choice to do that. So as we move forward tonight, and I'll turn it over to you a little bit, Rodney, just to get caught up. But we'll start with a few things that you shared last week, Rodney. I wanted to start with that after you do your spiel. But one of the things was you mentioned about you guys were interviewing, and I don't know if it was HR or someone said that it's not getting the new people, is keeping the old ones, retention, like getting those people. So I listened to the show today, and I want to start there after you say hello and whatever it is you want to add before we get started.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Tammy. To everyone listening, good evening to you all. It is good to be with you on this Tuesday. I do apologize for being tardy to the party, but um, but I am here and I am excited to get the party started.
All
Um,
right.
in
Oh,
regard,
Kevin is I don't know. He's saying that we weren't on last week, but I thought I said that, but I might have said last week without just thinking last week. But KL, we know that. But thank you for reminding us.
somebody's keeping count. I see.
Yeah, yeah. That's our longtime listener. Hey, Kim, how are you? Kim Culbreth, you guys. We go way back. That was my buddy. Thank you for chiming in, Kim. So go ahead, Rodney. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
I was gonna say, I think that in regards to the comment, yep, it was lady in HR, um, and I think that we don't we focus too much on quantity instead of quality,
Oh gosh.
and numbers mean everything to us. Think about social media. We would rather have 1,000 likes by just anybody as opposed to 5 likes by people who actually really
No.
enjoyed reading our posts
Or just know us.
or just know us.
Like intimately know us or
The
get us.
numbers mean everything to us. And it doesn't always mean the numbers don't the high numbers don't always mean genuineness. They don't always mean authenticity. The high numbers don't always mean that, those people are on your side or in your corner. And it's the same thing when it comes to work. We say, oh, I was able to recruit 10 new people. But what good does it do you to recruit 10 new people if all 10 new people leave the next year? You haven't done anything. We want everything, quick, and in a hurry. And we're not in it for the long game. We live like microwaves instead of ovens. We don't.
Rodney, you know what? When you said that, and well, not when you said it, I was going to say last week. So, Kevin, you're probably right. I said last week, the last show. What I thought about was as it relates to relationship and the victim syndrome, because we are, and I think I said this, we are good at starting. We're really
Mhm.
good at starting. And so, as I was listening to the show, the last show today, I thought about, so if we're really good at starting, are we hiding for those of us who have the victim syndrome or victim mentality? And I think we all have a little bit of it. At some point in time, I think it's just different areas of our lives and so forth. I think if I could pick one, I think the rejection, people who deal with rejection issues, have, it probably shows up more in those people who deal with the victim with the rejection syndrome or whatever that we call that. But I thought about when you said that, how we really do start good. Like even going in for a job, it's not just the applicant. The employer also puts up a really good front for
Yeah,
us. Like they really do. So are we hiding it, and if we are, then why can't we continue to hide it or just displace it or put it aside and be who we started out being?
I
So
like
I
I,
wonder why it shows up later.
I like what my best friend always says, um, and what he says is, you can fake the funk for a few hours. You can fake the
Mm.
funk for a day or two, but it is hard to keep that up 24/7, 365 days a year. So, meaning, it is very easy for us to be one way at home and then be a different way when we leave home. Because, take for instance, we go to work. Most of us, or most people, depending on their line of work, look, I mean, we spend a whole lot of time in the morning getting ready for work. And for women, it's a lot more than men, right? Because women have makeup and, lipstick and, you
I
know,
don't know now.
doing hair and, all of those things. But think about how the preparation that goes into leaving home, right? And who we look like and who we are when we leave home, right? We do this for different reasons, but we only have to do it temporarily. Because when I get back home, I'm taking all this stuff off and I'm going to look the complete opposite of what I look like throughout the day, right? And then I know people say, well, I should be able to be comfortable at home. Well, that's true. You should be comfortable at home. But think of it in this way, think about how we are internally versus externally. We look real good on the outside, and then there's a bunch of junk in our hearts. Our hearts aren't right. If it, we want other people to see this beautiful person or this handsome person or this kind person or this thoughtful person or this giving person, like we want people to see that when we leave out of the house. But when it's just us, then it turns into something completely different. And that's how we are as people. When we're by ourselves, we're one way. When we're around other people, we're a completely different way. And so I agree with my friend when he says, if somebody just has to, um, for example, let's say a man and a woman are in a relationship, and I mean it's all hell all the time. But when they go to a family cookout in the summertime, you think that they're the happiest couple in the world. Why? Because they're only going to be at the cookout for a few hours. They can hold it in for a few hours. But it's hard when you have to do that every day. It's hard. And see, what we also fail to realize, and here's why I don't judge people. One of the reasons why I don't judge people and why I don't make assumptions or form opinions when people tell me things about their lives. Because just because somebody's a certain way at work, or just because you're my friend, or just because I know you from church, the person that I know may not be who your companion says that you are. They may not know that person. And so I think we have to be careful when we start taking sides, when we start forming opinions, because I I may know you from work. Tammy, I know you from radio show, and we talk on the phone sometimes or talk through text. But I don't live with you, Tammy. I'm not with you every day. I don't get to see I don't get to see your downtime. I don't get to see you when you wake up in the morning. I'm not with you all day every day. So it would be ignorant of me to say, "Oh, well, Tammy is this way and Tammy is that way," because I don't know.
But you know what, Rodney? Okay, so how does, and I get what you're saying, particularly, and I guess what I really want to get out of this, you guys, is that I'll go back to what I said. No matter what side we're on, we've made a choice to be on that side.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we can shut it down and we can, because I am really, really some kind of way about how disconnected relationships end up being. Like how two people can be so there, and then all of a sudden they're just not. And I get it, it's not all of a sudden, I get that, but I'm saying if we can minimize our victim mentality, our victim syndrome, if we can show up differently at the start, then we can go for the ride. We can go along and with the ride and do the same thing if we choose to. But I think to what Rodney's saying is we're good at starting because that's what we do. That's what we do. And to define victim syndrome, and again, I think all of us have it to a degree, and it may depend on what day it is, who you're around. Um, but it is those people that for number one, it's always, and I say always, but I'll say for the most part, it's always someone else. It's always someone else's fault. And they feel like, and they really think, and I'm not minimizing that there has not been traumatic experience in all of our lives, because it has. It has. I don't think there's anyone that will listen to this show and that is listening that has not had those traumatic experiences, that has bought a little bit of this victim syndrome out in them. But these are people who most of the time it's always someone else's fault. They're hopeless. Um, they complain about a lot and most and about most things.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the description last week, I said that they make people feel like they always have to walk on eggshells. Like there's no pleasing, there's nothing I can do because it's going to be something else as soon as I do that. But more importantly, and I'll say this because for me, I've learned for the people in my life that I want in my life, I'll say that I want in my life, that I have truly started to try to take responsibility of trying to understand them. Doesn't mean that they get a way out now, but trying to understand your traumatic experience and what it has done to you. And then as I go back to Bluff City leadership, what do you need from me and how do you need it? First of all, you got to be able to tell me what you need and why, and share some of those experiences so I just don't know your why. I have a better understanding of your why, because I can get caught in the rain, my hair can get wet, whatever, and I'm not affected by it. Someone else, that would be detrimental to them. And so I say that because we may have some of the same things that has happened to us, but I may not, that one thing may not have victimized me in that way. And it would you. So again, we show up good. And my one question to take back is, if you can show up, if you can act the part to get the guy or to get the job or to get the girl or to do whatever, to fake the funk, because we do that really well. Why can't we bring that same energy and just try to be consistent in overcoming that thing by changing our reactions, the way we speak, the way we think about it, the way that we choose for it to control us and to make us feel hopeless, to always blame somebody else and never be, is it interperspective? Is that the word, teacher, principal? Is that the word? To never, I think that's the word. I hope I'm not using it out of line, but if so, oh well. Um,
That word is bigger than my vocabulary,
I
Tammy.
think that's the word. Like you never kind of go in and see, where do I fit in this? How have I contributed? I think that's what that means. How have I contributed to this thing? And also, I mentioned that the victim syndrome make people, those who suffer with it, make people feel like they have to walk on eggshells. And I was going to say, more importantly, those people always feel like they're walking on bombs. And I think I said landmines last week, but they really do. And in most cases, they really had some traumatic experiences, but we don't get just to live there. And for those of you who just came on, I think the traumatic experience is just that. The trauma is reliving the traumatic experience. The trauma is letting it identify you or make you think you can or cannot based on that experience.
Ta-
So, Rodney, how do you look at the victim syndrome? How do you, especially as to starting?
I think you said a word that I think is very critical, and that is understanding. And we have to be understanding of ourselves and
Mm,
understanding of other people. But it starts with us. And understanding usually comes from knowledge and experiences. When you have the more you know, the more you learn, the more you go through in your own life, the better your understanding is, I think. So you have to have an understanding of yourself, meaning who are you in the first place? Not who you want to be, not who you think you are, but be honest with yourself. Who are you? And once you have an understanding of yourself, because if you don't understand yourself, you're not going to understand other people. Once you have an understanding of yourself, what you like, what you don't like, what you can tolerate, what you can't tolerate, your
mm,
boundaries, like you need to understand all these things. Like understand what does respect to me? What does respect mean to me? What does love mean? What is love to me? What is happiness to me? Understand yourself first. And once you understand yourself, then it's easier to understand other people. And when you start to understand other people, then there needs to be respect. When you understand other people are different than you, then you need to respect the fact that people are different than you. And then you have a choice to make. I want this person in my life. I don't want this person in my life. Or I want them in my life to this extent, right?
mm.
Because you can make
Mm.
that choice. Nobody has to be in your life forever. Nobody
Do
has
you
to.
feel that people are afraid to make that choice? People
Oh
that
yes.
suffer from victim, or just, I think people in general, but particularly people who suffer from the victim mentality. Why do
Yes.
you think that it's difficult for them to make the choice to have people in or out of their lives?
Well, because there's a fear of lack of control.
Mm,
And people who are victims don't want to give up control. They are afraid to be vulnerable because they think I'm going to lose control. They're afraid to say I'm sorry because they think it's going to make them it's going to make them weak, um, or the other person is going to take advantage of them. They're afraid. They're afraid to be them true self, their true selves. And so I think that once we have the understanding, and then once the respect kicks in, then I think we can decide you know how people are going to be in our lives. And when you get to that point, then I think it is easier for you to have better relationships with people in general. And I don't just mean boyfriend, girlfriend, or husband and wife, just in general. It is easier for you to have relationships with people because not everything is going to bother you. Not everything is going to get on your nerves because you understand, hey, I I like sports. They don't like sports. Okay, cool. I just want to talk about sports with you. I was talking to one of the other principals today, right? He doesn't. He was like, I don't do NFL football. Okay, cool. I won't talk to him about NFL football because that's not his thing. It does, but I'm not going to stop talking to him altogether because I like NFL football and he doesn't. But that's what we do. We make drastic decisions
I agree.
off of things that are this big. Okay, so we don't have NFL football in common. What do we have in common? What can we talk about? And you know, and then another thing, take me apart of the victim syndrome. And I don't know why this thought came to me, but people tend to find people who always agree with what they say. They
Do you
don't
think
want
with
anyone
the
to
victim
disagree with
people
them.
with victim syndrome,
Yes,
people who suffer?
they
Okay,
want they don't want people um who are going to challenge them or disagree with them.
but you know what? I think I agree with you, but I would throw in there that I think people who suffer with any kind of anything, unless they have gotten into a place or accepted the fact that, hey, I do see this in my life,
Mm-hmm.
and they've not become open to receiving it, then yes, I think that they always seem to, I don't know if it's pick people, because I don't know if that's the right word, because as you were talking about picking the people in and that's in their life, choosing those people who are in their life, I think that it's difficult for people to say no to people, like, okay, out this end without ending, meaning, it can be good, but it has to end. I think one of the best ways to find out, because we say we love ourselves, people say that, so, oh, I love me, I love me, but I think one of the things that tells us more about how we feel about ourselves is the people that we allow to stay in and to leave and to come in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and I think people who suffer from victim syndrome are afraid to let people go, because, and I don't know, because I'm not a licensed clinician or anything like that, but I think sometimes it's another, letting go is another hit. It is
Yeah,
another
or loss.
hopeless moment, loss. It is another, you said control. It is something again that seems out of my control. And so, and with that, sometimes the person on the other end does not leave, because again, the victim mentality is really close to narcissism. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's really there. Which is why Rodney, I think before you came on, I said that we're going to revisit this, but more into talking about narcissism, which I think again, all of us has a drop or two of that in our personality, in the way that we show up in our relationships and so forth. But the people with victim mentality, I do think, and you said something too, find out who you are. I think we also need to start addressing the feelings. Like, how am I feeling and why? When does this feeling show up? Why do I feel like I never have control over anything? Why do I feel hopeless? Why is it always someone else's fault? What is their fault? Like, what is it? Because you can't around and never play a part. You
Mm-hmm.
just can't, because if you never play a part, why are you there? Just go, just leave. Go ahead,
Tammy,
Rodney.
I think about my career as a teacher, and even now being a principal, I still consider myself as a teacher. And I think about the times when um, test scores were low or not where they should have been. And I just remember listening to different people, and it was everybody's fault but theirs. It was
Mm,
um well, the kids, it's always, I mean, it happens so fast, right? The moment the results are not what they should be, it's blame the kids, blame the parents, right? Oh, they didn't do the work. Okay, why didn't they do the work? Oh, they don't care. Okay, why don't they care? Right? It's just, and then I've seen where groups of people just get together and make each other feel good in their misery, or in their failure to produce. And it's like, wait a minute. So you mean to tell me you're the teacher in this classroom? You've been here for 180 days teaching these children, and not to mention, you started a week or two before they came. So you've been here all this time, and none of this is your fault. These
right.
scores, these scores are not your fault. It's the kids' fault. That makes no sense to me. Like, I remember, Tammy, my first year teaching, I remember the first few months of school, I would be at school until 7 or 8 o'clock at night on a Friday. And I remember people were like, "What is wrong with you?" I was like, "I failed the kids." And they were like, "What?
Mm.
You failed the kids?" I said, "Yes." I said, "Look at these scores on these tests." I didn't say the kids failed. I failed them. Because if you're getting 40s and 50s, or whatever, if you're getting an F on a test after I've taught you all week, and you get a 40 on Friday, you didn't fail. I failed you. And it was a shock to people. Yes, no, I'm not blaming the kid for this. I'm not blaming the kid. And so I would be sitting, I would be there just trying to figure out, okay, I tried this week. This didn't work. Okay, let me go back to the drawing board. What can I try next week? And because I took that approach, eventually we got there. But I didn't blame the kids.
Hmm.
And I remember people that year, some of the parents came in. I don't know why they gave you this class. They should have never done this to a first year teacher. I said, no, it's okay. We'll be all right. And guess what? By the end of the year, we were.
But Ronnie, do you remember telling this story about and again, you guys, I know we end up on the kids because you really can't talk about this without talking about experiences from childhood. And if the one thing I want us to do better is do better by raising our children,
Mm-hmm.
and how I'm going to say more about that. But remember the story about the kid who would always act up at math during math. Then it was time to have math, and you realize that it was always at that time, and
Yeah.
that he was really afraid to be wrong. He didn't feel like he knew how to answer the questions or whatever. And so, as you were talking about that, I think we were, depending on your age, I think I had more time coming up to before the class, before the teacher, um, ex- with expectations of knowing timetables. Like there was times where, what I'm trying to say is, like, we were put out there. But now systems have, I think, set us up for this victim syndrome mentality. Like, I think
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of the things that gave you courage, or or got you before people, and yes, there were times but you'd almost learn it so that you would know it when the teacher called you to the board to work the problem out, or she says, okay, Tammy, come up and say your two timetables. um But now you have to be so careful in how you say this, do this. We set these kids up for perfection, and that's something that they cannot
Hmm.
obtain.
Yeah.
So I think we're doing them a disservice. I think in some ways, even my generation to a point, and certainly those on after me, um, has that we just have been dealt a bad deck of cards because no one wants to. I gotta look at the word and make sure because for some reason it just keeps coming to my mind. But we don't want to look inward, but we're always offended.
Yeah.
Mostly, I mean, and that was me. I was one that I would be offended by the drop of a dime. Now I don't care what you think about me. I don't care. I not that I don't care. I'm not going to entertain it.
Yeah.
Like it's not going to spoil my day.
You're not getting my energy.
Right. You're not getting my energy and I'm not getting yours. So you can be the victim and you can play the victim. And I'm gonna do just like I did with came up with this conversation. Like I'll have a pity party with you, but for so long. Because I think at some point we all want to and need to sometimes to just vent and be able to say and do whatever. But when we get to the point where we are consistently repeating the same story to the same people sometimes, or maybe even to strangers, that's a victim mentality. And I'm saying like always, because yes, there I'm not telling you not to communicate, not to share your thoughts, not your feelings, but at some point you got to share it to where you're coming up with a solution and you're going to be done with it. That's the trauma.
Hmm.
That's the trauma when it becomes your life, when it becomes your magnet for drawing people in so that you can tell it, so that you can do it. These people also always, mostly always complain. And again, that they're never the ones that are wrong though. Never. So it is so
Sammy, I
much.
can't
Uh-huh.
go ahead. No, I'm sorry.
No, no, go ahead.
I was gonna say I can't tell you the number of things that I've gone through with work, right?
Hmm.
The number of things that we have to do in order to get ready for school. And it doesn't bother me, right? And like there are times I hear stuff or I see stuff and I just really shake my head or I laugh and I'm like, did they really say that? Or did they really ask that? And then I'm right back to what I have to do because I'm like, there's too much work to be done for me to sit around and have a pity party about the work that needs to be done. No, there's work to do, and I'm going to do it. And you know, it because if I did, what do you think everybody else is going to do?
Hmm.
If I'm the principal and I'm complaining about everything, what do you think everybody else is going to do? If I'm the principal and I'm like, I'm not doing this, what do you think everybody else is going to do? Or if I'm the principal and I want people to feel sorry for me because of the things that I have to do, I can't get mad when my staff does it. And so for me, I'm glad that I have the personality that I do. And it's just like every time, something comes up, I'm like, okay, it's cool. We got it. Like we'll be ready August 25th. We'll be ready. But I'm glad that I'm like that because I don't know. I don't want to know what it feels like to complain all the time because I know how I feel when I hear people complaining all the time. And it's like there's so much to be thankful for. There's so much going on in our lives for us to be grateful that if you can't find the positive in anything, it might be you. It might be you. If you're waiting for if things if everything bad that happens in your life, if it can rock your world, turn it upside down to the point where you just can't function. If every single thing like that happens in your life and it just messes you all up, you're gonna have a problem. Like you're gonna always have problems. Because yeah, some things happen and they knock you down, they knock you off your feet. Okay. But the strong person gets back up. Sometimes they get back up real fast. Sometimes they have to crawl and then stagger until they're back on their feet. But they get back on their feet. And if they're not on their feet, they're trying to get on their feet.
Mhm.
That's who we have to be. We have to be resilient. When things happen, we have to take it, okay, not make quick decisions, not try to, because trouble is going to find our lives at some point. It's going to. Every day is not going to be it's not going to be easy. Every day is not going to be, peaches and cream. But but when trouble comes, when trouble finds you, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to sit around and cry? Are you going to sit around and be mad at the world and
Mhm.
call everybody you know? Or are you going to sit back and say, okay, this just happened. Let me come up with a plan to A, solve this problem, and B, get back on my feet. Those are the people that we have to be.
And right now, I think it's so important too for people to realize. I can't speak enough about trauma, you guys. Traumatic experiences that happen in our lives that we never. And I get it. I get it. Especially, and I say this, and I may be saying this just because this is what has always been said, but um, I think there is some truth to it. We, as, and I'm not going to make this a racial race thing, but people of my color, we were taught with what happens here stays here, and we were taught to see therapy or anything like that as for crazy people. And so I'm going to say we're all a little crazy. We're all a little crazy from some things that um, I would say from the emotional things things that have left us emotionally scarred. But the one thing I want you guys to know is to start thinking about what has the things that have happened to you, um, near or far. How do you feel about those things? How have they left you emotionally? How do you continue to experience those things through your feelings, through the way that you show up in life, how you feel about yourself, how comfortable you are with, I guess, what you can do, what you can contribute to this world? Or are you consistently crying and dealing? And when I say crying, I'm not saying tears physically, internally crying. Are you living in that moment of fear and pain from those things? Are you willing to become unlearned? Are you willing to renew your mind? Are you willing to think differently? Because I'll tell you, just talking about it, just birthing that or getting it out of my system about how I feel when I go out, my experience going out was different. Like I still had some funky people, but I had far more smell good people than I did funky. And when I mean their energy like that, I had far more after just saying, well, maybe Tammy, you're looking for this. Maybe you're taking this out with you because you were expecting to run into these people. You're expecting them to be funky with you or whatever. And I get it. There's some crazy people out there, like crazy. I recently started, you guys, and I think I can say this without saying too much, but I started um, working at a really nice apartment complex. And I mean, it's really nice. And I had this lady call in, and I didn't have anything for her. And so, and because they needed something kind of right away. And I said my spiel, I helped her as best I could. And she called back because she had said, well, no, we need something much sooner than this. So she called back and she said, this is me again. I just talked to you. She said, can we just go ahead with this apartment because everyone else I've talked to has been so mean. And so my husband just said, let's just go with you and we'll just stay somewhere until we're able to move there. And I thought, wow, but she is willing to, her family, her husband, and I liked that too. I talked to my husband about it, and he said, let's just go there because you were nice. And so I was talking with Brandon about it, and he said, wow, imagine that if they're like that now, what would they be when you get there, when you get in there with them? And that is so true. Like, we're so deep into pain, and I don't know, like, I get it, you guys, because there's stuff in my life that I could tell you and you'd be like, wow, you never knew. Certainly not by me, because I'm not a quitter. I'm not going to give up. I don't I things will happen, but I don't feel like anybody can hold me down, or anybody in my family. Period. That's just how I feel, because I there's some scriptures that I stand on. Greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. I can do all things through. That's for me. But even down to the scripture that we keep saying sometimes is victim. Like, we hang on to the victim scriptures. I mean, so we really need to start thinking about. We really do. Like I just want what God wants. Really, do you? Because I think He's the one that says, "I came that you
Yeah.
have life and have it more abundantly."
Hmm.
Yet we play the victim. We downsize our life and what we can conquer. What we can do. So I should claim that I'm going to go out and I'm going to have a great experience. I don't have to tell you about my woes because you see my light. I hope. And so I'm just saying to say, life happens. Like Rodney said, life does happen to us. Things are going to happen. We're going to have some challenging days, some challenging ones for sure. But we don't and should not always be complaining and being the victim to life and circumstances and people. Because if we are, then that's on me. That's on you. It definitely is. So you have to look at trauma. You have to have the conversations, not just with people, but with yourself, about who you are. Why are you feeling this way? Why are you offended? Why do you feel victimized? Why do you think everywhere you go, home, work, school, to the store, driving, like, come on now. So at some point you got to get that mirror out, and you gotta have spiritual surgery. I think we did that show, spiritual surgery on yourself, in order to get out of this victim mentality. Woe, it's me. And stop talking about Rodney, I'll turn it back over to you. I've started to, you know this, and probably people who listen too, but for a while, I mean, I just kind of stopped listening to people preach and all that stuff. I'm like, I got to get this for myself, because I think for me it felt like I was more weighed down. Um, and so I just really went on my own spiritual journey, searching and learning for myself. But I realized how sometimes, even in preaching, how we talk more about the devil than we do about God. I mean, have you not noticed? I'm like, my goodness, can we just kind
Yeah.
of leave him over there, or whatever it is? Can we just kind of get on with it? But I've come to realize that, and again, for me, I'll end here, for me, this show has helped me identify some victim syndrome and mentality areas in my life, and it has shown me how I have shown up playing the victim in some areas of my life. But that's why we're here, and that's why, because it was difficult. I almost said, Rodney, like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this tonight. I'm super duper tired, but we're here, because the farther I grow and go, the more I find out about myself. And I say, with all the studying and the research, I personally do for myself, Yet I still have the challenges. I still have the struggle. I can only imagine what people who are not putting in any work, the mental wars you have with yourself, whether you want to admit it here or not. I can only imagine what they must be. So stop playing the victim. Thank you for listening to us. And if you have anything to say on this, please, please let us know, because I think hopefully we'll talk about narcissism and kind of tie it all together. I don't know if we'll do that next week or the week after, but we'll tie it in some kind of way with that. Um, I do have an announcement or just something I want to share. I shared it a little bit, I think, the last show, but I got my certification in prepare and enrich, to in hopes of being able to help couples more, because this certification allows me to deal with couples only. And so I am looking for, I need two more couples. I'm kind of doing this beta thing, and I need a few more couples to participate. So again, both you and your spouse will have to. I can't just work with one person. So if you know someone, if you want to just understand each other better, and when I say better, I say that with the life languages, but this is so deep, you guys. Like, it will take, I'm going to say, thus far, it has taken people at least an hour and a half. And don't let this scare you, an hour and a half to get through the question, because it goes back into your childhood. Like, it will ask you and your spouse questions, or boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, getting married or whatever. You would ask questions, and then based on those questions, it creates this profile for you to take specific to those answers. And it allows you to go back, whether you're the first child, the last child, the only child, what was the marital status of your parents, all of these things, and to see it come to play. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. That's another thing. I've gotten kind of addicted to assessments and assessing self and assessing people, and just the way that they show up, and based on the things that have happened to them, how do they show up, or how does it show up in their life? And you guys, it shows up whether you want to admit it or not. It shows up. People may not be saying anything to you about the way that it shows up, but they know. And because I knew. Maybe not down to the detail with a period behind it, but you know when it's showing up. You don't take this journey and not know. So stop responding to um, the experience or the feeling of the traumatic experiences that you've gone through. So if you're interested in, or want to know more, just send me a message on Facebook, or email me at tammy@bluffcityleadership.com. Again, tammy@bluffcityleadership.com. Either one. Or if you know someone, share that with them as well. So, Rodney, I'll turn it over to you. Tell us about this. Well, no, school hasn't started yet.
Mm-mm.
Um, how have things been? I guess slowly coming together.
Busy.
For those of you who do not know, Rodney is now a principal.
things have
So,
been things have been busy. They've been nonstop, but they've been good. I'm excited. We are making some progress. We have a lot of things to get done before school starts, but I'm confident that we'll get them done. Or if we don't, I'm confident that things will be okay.
okay.
I only worry about the things that I can control. Um,
Wow.
and the things that I cannot control, I leave them for people who do have control, and I leave it to the Lord. so,
Wow. And
so
being a principal and saying that, man, you must be in another place, because,
I
but
I
you
don't.
almost have to.
I, Tammy, when I work, um, I work long days, and when I come home, um, I try to leave work at work. I try not to check emails. I try not to send emails. I try not to bother people. If there's something that I really need to do, I will do it. But I try to use the evenings and the weekends to recharge. Most weekends, the only thing I want to do is sleep.
Mm,
But um, but what I've always tried to do is when I leave work every day, I ask myself, am I satisfied with the work that I've done?
mm,
And if I'm satisfied with the work that I've done, and it doesn't mean that I finished everything, but if I'm satisfied with the work that I've done, the effort that I've put in, the things that I was able to accomplish, um, you know, then I'm okay. I don't sit up worrying. Um, if I feel like something did go well, then I may think about it, a little bit, in the evening time. But I try to make sure that I'm productive during
mhm,
the day. I try to make sure that I treat people right during the day.
mhm,
I try to make sure that I do everything that's in my power. And I'm the same way as a principal. Um, the only thing I can do, and I was going to say this um, about the topic tonight. I am good at being me, and that's what I practice every day. I practice just being me, because when I'm not me, I'm miserable, and it shows up externally,
mm,
and it creates issues that I don't even realize are there. So I'm at my best when I'm being me, and so whether I'm at home, whether I'm at work, whether I'm out with friends, I try to be myself. But things are going well. Uh, like I said, it's a lot of work to do, but it's fun. We are having fun while we're doing it.
and you
And
gotta get your own, like, you gotta it's always just the start of the year is difficult anyway. Well,
mm,
it's I like to use the word different now than difficult. It's a process
mm,
anytime, but especially being new going into it, the head the chief, you it's gonna be those days and those times, but it'll
yeah.
get better. But then school, it'll happen all over again to be time to start school again, and here you go. So
Yeah.
it
So
does.
yeah, I'm excited. This is brand new for me. I've never, been a principal or been responsible for an entire building, but I got
Yeah. Yep.
it.
Yep. It's been happening a long time, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, and there are a lot of events coming up before school that I'll be a part of. So if you
Mhm.
guys don't see me on a Tuesday, I promise it's for a good reason. Like next Tuesday, I may not be here because my school is going through a reconfiguration where they're thinking about adding the sixth graders back into the middle school in a few years. So next
Oh,
Tuesday, I
wow.
have to go, and the meetings usually last from like 6 to 9, I think, or something like that.
Okay.
So but I'll make sure. And they're actually doing this one at the school. So and I need to be a part of the conversations.
Right, right.
Um,
I think right now, I hadn't shared this with you, but I've had a few people in the back wanting to do some interviews. And so that may be a good time to get those in. And I'm thinking also, because there's just a lot going on, you guys, that will make this platform better, that I've been working on now for behind the scenes for a while, or we've been working on. So it's going to get greater, but it may be a little different before you see the greatness. But there's some great things happening, that's going to shift this whole little platform. So, and I shouldn't say little, our whole big entire platform. So more about that. But so if you don't see us, just know that it's not because we're going away. It's because we are working to be better and bigger and greater, and all that stuff. So if you don't see us, or if you don't see Rodney, we're making it happen. So hang in there with us.
Great topic, Tammy. Great topic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, and I hope we didn't step on toes, but if we did, your toes and feet were in the way, you might want to study this topic. So, because I'm telling you, I saw myself in some areas, and I got lots of stuff here that I have been reading and listening to videos on, and I'm like, wow, some of the things that are in us, we just don't know. So The lack of knowledge, they say, we fail for a lack of knowledge. I think more importantly, we fail for a lack of knowledge of self, of understanding who we are. No one else can do that for us. And we can't help people understand who we are and how we are if we don't know. If we don't know. So you have to know. You have to show up for yourself. The bad things, I shouldn't say bad, the difficult and different things that you try to avoid, but you know that they're there because you feel them. You're emotional about them. So that's all I have, Rodney. Again, thanks everyone. That's all I have, Rodney. You have any more?
Nope, that's it for me.
All right. Well, it's been great, you guys. Thank you to everyone who listened and everyone that will go back and listen after we're off. Continue to spread the word for Butterfly Evolution Radio and be on the lookout for some great things to come. So, that being said, Rodney, thank you. Glad you made it. Thank you, because I know you're probably wore out, tired as well, but we showed up. We show up. We show up. So,
I need a
everybody,
nap. I need a nap every day when I get home, Terry.
I'm telling you, I'm telling you. I've gotten stuck on this 4 o'clock waking up. I tried so hard to go back to sleep this morning and I couldn't. And so it's been a long day. The bed is calling my name.
You and me both. You and me
So,
both.
yeah. So have a great night, Rodney. We'll catch up later in the week. Um, and everybody have a great, great night.
All right,
Thank you for
Tammy.
tuning in. All right.